Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely pumped to jump right into this today because we're taking a highly structured, deep dive into something that impacts literally every single interaction you have. We're looking at the true biological and linguistic mechanics of human connection. We're talking neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. Forget whatever you think you know about communication, because today we are uncovering the anatomy of how humans actually connect on a completely unconscious level.
Right off the bat, we've got to address the elephant in the room. When a lot of people hear the letters NLP, they instantly picture, swinging pocket watches, mind control, or some sort of hypnotic manipulation where you force people to do your bidding. Let's just playfully toss that out the window right now. Real influence has absolutely zero to do with parlor tricks. As you'll see throughout this explainer, true mastery is deeply rooted in keen observation, profound empathy, and incredibly subtle alignment. It's really about getting onto the other person's wavelength, not hacking into their brain.
Think about this. What if you could literally see how someone is feeling? Most of us, we rely way too heavily on vibes or, honestly, just outdated pop psychology. Like, you see someone cross their arms and you instantly assume, oh, they're closed off, or wow, they're super defensive. But what if they're literally just cold? NLP challenges us to stop guessing in the dark and start paying attention to what is actually biologically happening right in front of our eyes.
And that brings us to this foundational concept. There's this classic NLP presupposition that states, the meaning of communication is the response you get. I absolutely love this because it puts the responsibility entirely on us as the communicators. I mean, if you're explaining a complex idea and the other person looks totally confused, your communication wasn't an explanation at all, it was just a confusion generator. This idea sets a super active, results-oriented tone for our whole journey today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Observation, specifically the core skill of calibration. 2. Connection, where we'll unpack matching versus mirroring. 3. Translation, learning to speak another person's sensory language. And 4. Influence, where we put the whole shebang together with pacing and leading.
So, Act 1, Observation, the master skill of calibration.
To quote NLP master trainer Dr. Adriana James, there's absolutely nothing we can do in NLP until we learn to observe. It is the absolute bedrock of everything else we're going to discuss. Calibration is simply your ability to detect changes in a person's state by comparing how they behave in one situation versus another. And the key phrase here is observable physiological shifts. Master communicators don't use some mystical sixth sense to feel an emotion. No, they rely on concrete, visual evidence. They are watching exactly what the physical body is doing in real time.
Let's make this super actionable with a brilliant little exercise you can literally go practice today. Step 1. Ask someone about something they are incredibly passionate about. A hobby, their pet, a favorite vacation spot. Watch their body carefully as they talk. This creates your baseline for their positive state. Okay, step 2, shift the topic to something they strongly dislike, like a true, deep aversion. Now step 3, just compare. How did their physiology just shift? What actually moved? So what exactly are you supposed to be looking for? You want to watch for the micro cues that reveal those internal states. Does their skin color suddenly lighten or darken? Does their lower lip get fuller or does it tighten up? Watch their breathing. Does the pace pick up? Does it move from deep in their belly up to their upper chest? Do their pupils dilate? Do their facial muscles tighten, totally changing their facial symmetry? These are surprising, incredibly subtle physiological cues that most people never consciously notice, but they give you a high-definition read on exactly what that person is experiencing.
All right, moving into Act 2, Connection, the mechanics of rapport. When we talk about human connection, we really need to redefine rapport. It's not just smiling, making small talk, and finding out you both happen to like the same sports team. In NLP, rapport is a biological syncing where two separate nervous systems literally track and respond to each other on an unconscious level. To build it, we really need to understand the distinction between matching and mirroring. Mirroring is a literal mirror image. If they cross their right arm, you cross your left arm. But be incredibly careful with this. As our sources point out, literal mirroring in a professional setting can actually come off as mockery, and it will instantly break your rapport. Matching, on the other hand, is way more subtle. It's aligning with their general pattern or tempo without doing an exact copy-paste imitation.
Let's look at how this builds into practical application across a few specific channels. Posture is a great place to start, but try what's called crossover matching. If they tap their finger on the desk, you subtly tap your foot to the exact same rhythm. It's virtually undetectable, but it is incredibly powerful. You can also match their breathing rate, the tempo and volume of their voice, and just their general emotional tone.
If you do this smoothly, you are actively linking your nervous system right up to theirs.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it totally busts a massive pop culture myth. I am sure you've heard the old stat that 55% of communication is body language, 38% is tone, and only 7% is the actual words. Well, that is a complete misinterpretation of Dr. Albert Mehrabian's research. His findings actually showed that body language dominates only when the words and the body language are actively in conflict. Like if someone yells, "I'm totally fine," while slamming a door in your face. Words and tone absolutely still matter deeply when you're building rapport.
Which leads us perfectly into Act 3, translation, speaking their sensory language. So we've talked about physical connection. Now let's look at verbal connection. Everyone has a preferred way of processing reality, and they totally reveal it in their everyday language. A visual processor uses visual words, which we call predicates. "Ah, I clearly see what you mean, the future looks really bright." An auditory processor focuses heavily on sound. "That sounds like a great plan. It really resonates with me." A kinesthetic processor uses feelings and textures. "I just can't quite grasp this concept. It's a heavy burden." Look, if a client says to you, "I just can't see the path forward," and your reply is, "Well, how does that make you feel?" you just missed a massive opportunity to match their sensory language and seriously accelerate your connection.
And how do you verify their language? Through what NLP calls eye accessing cues. These involuntary eye movements actually help confirm a person's active representational system. For example, when you ask someone to visualize a memory, a visually dominant person will almost always involuntarily flick their eyes upwards. By just observing this, you can test and confirm whether the person sitting across from you is processing visually, auditorily, or kinesthetically right there in that exact moment.
Finally, Act 4, influence, the pacing and leading cycle.
Okay, so you've observed, you've synced your nervous systems, and you're speaking their sensory language. The rapport is completely locked in. Now what do? How do you utilize that to create a positive change? You use the real mechanics of influence, the pacing and leading cycle. First, you pace. You match their reality to establish a deep sense of safety. Step 2, you lead. You make a very small, subtle behavioral shift. Maybe you breathe just a little bit slower, or you drop the volume of your voice slightly. Step 3, observe. Do their nervous systems follow yours? Do they slow down too? If they do, boom, you have true rapport. If they don't, step 4, no big deal. You simply return to pacing until the connection deepens again. Leading isn't manipulation, it's honestly the ultimate test of mutual biological responsiveness.
Let's consider a really high-stakes example, diffusing anger. If someone comes at you with intense, furious energy, telling them to just calm down breaks rapport instantly. It never works. Instead, you pace. You match their high-energy tone, speaking slightly louder and faster to validate their intensity without actually getting angry yourself. Once they feel heard and matched, then you begin to lead. You gradually lower your volume. You slow your tempo down. Because their nervous system desperately wants to stay in rapport with yours, their emotional intensity will naturally decline right alongside yours.
So the crucial point is captured beautifully in this quote. When you start with where someone is, you increase your chances of guiding them toward where they can be. Think about a recent difficult conversation you had, maybe at work or at home. Did you try to immediately pull them over to your perspective? Did you push instead of pace? True influence absolutely requires meeting people exactly where their physiology and their psychology currently reside.
I'm going to leave you with this pretty provocative question. Are you truly communicating with the person in front of you? Are you just guessing in the dark? Now that you know the anatomy of connection, from micro-calibrations like skin color and pupil dilation to matching breathing rates to speaking in visual, auditory, or kinesthetic predicates, you have the structured tools to step out of the dark. The next time you sit down with someone, don't just passively listen. Observe, pace, connect. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I challenge you to go out and calibrate the world around you today.